Okay, wonderful. Got it. Thanks, Gary. Well, good evening, ladies. My name is Glenn Price, and I'm one of the owners of Keystone Financial Resources. And so I want to welcome you to our webinar tonight on Women's Retirement Roadmap. And I'm really excited because I've got a lot of great information that I want to share with you. And it looks like we've got a lot of people signing on, so we're going to have a good crowd tonight. So that's really good. And I really hope that you ladies get a lot out of the information that we're going to go through. Now, we've got a lot to cover. I'll try not to go too fast, but I'll also try to keep us on task and make sure that we stay on track and on time. Now, this next slide is our disclosure slide, and this is basically saying that we're not making any recommendations. We're not trying to suggest that you purchase any type of investments. Our compliance people say that I need to keep this up here for at least 3 seconds, so I'll do that. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's move on. All right. Well, tonight in this webinar, really the content that we're going to be sharing tonight is centered around the specific risk and challenges that you women will face as you move into retirement. And these challenges are really unique to you as women, meaning that a lot of men won't experience the same type of challenges that you will experience. And now the question is probably in your mind is like, all right, well, what are some of those challenges? And we're going to talk about several of those, but probably the main fact that really fuels the majority of the challenges that you're going to face has to do with the fact that you ladies, on average, outlive us fellas anywhere from 5 to 8 years. That's 5 to 8 years that you live longer than the guys do, and that in itself creates a lot of these challenges that we're going to talk about tonight. Now, one of the statistics, ladies, that motivates so much of what Jonathan, myself, and our entire team does around helping our lady clients make sure that they take control of their finances and that they're confident is this fact. 80% of the men, when they die married. But did you know that 80% of the women die single? Now, let that sink in. 80% of the women die single. Another way to say that, ladies, is that 80% of the men out there will never know if their financial plan fails or succeeds. But 80% of you women will be faced with the reality of the failure of that plan or the success of that plan. So, ladies, you don't have the luxury to not be prepared and organized and ready whenever you move into retirement, because the majority of you ladies are going to be the one driving the ship, steering the ship, when all is said and done. Now, the next question you might be asking yourself is, all right, well, why are two men, Jonathan and myself, so motivated to help women overcome these challenges? And the answer to that really lies in the facts around our individual stories. Now, for me, it had to do with my grandmother. Now, I grew up in a small town just outside of Cookeville, Tennessee. And when I was just a little guy, my parents divorced and I lived with my dad. Well, when I was 9, my dad married a lady named Christy, and her parents were farmers, and they would soon become Nan and Pa to me. And so we lived actually right next door to Nan and Pa. So I spent a tremendous amount of time over at their house after school, in the summertime, on the weekends, and I learned to help them and began to help them work on the farm. And very quickly, Paul began to pour into me like a mentor. And I can remember him saying, Glenn, your word is your bond. When you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it. When you make someone a promise, you keep it. He also taught me the value of hard work, and he led by example. Nana, what a lady of integrity. I can remember her saying, Glenn, integrity is not just what you do when people are watching, but it's what you do when they're not watching. And she was an amazing cook. I used to love waking up there in the mornings to smell the smell of the breakfast. But what I remember so much more than even how good the food was, and it was good, was all the conversations that we would have at the kitchen table. In the morning, it was just, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have TV. It was just Nana, it was Pa, and it was me. And in the morning, we would spend time planning out our day. We would, at lunchtime, we would many times plan out how we were going to overcome the challenges that we were facing that particular day. And then in the evening, we were always talking about the next day, what fields need to be planted, who was going to feed the animals. And this time that I had on the farm, it was amazing. And for a young boy, I mean, I absolutely loved it. It was a very stable family for me. But then all of a sudden, one day, everything changed. Paul had a leaky heart valve and he went in for a surgery. And the doctor said, look, this is a routine surgery. I've done a lot of them. And he said, your Paul's going to be fine. So we really weren't that worried. We were hopeful and optimistic. Well, some hours later, whenever the doctor came out, Nana was the first one to meet him across the room. And I'll never forget the fear I saw in her face. When the doctor began to talk about that due to unexpected circumstances in the surgery, Paul didn't make it. He was gone. And I'll never forget just how quickly things begin to change, especially for Nana. She was always this strong, confident lady who was so sure of everything that she did. And now I saw her very timid and afraid and concerned about the future. She had to go back to work. She began to have to sell things. And I was confused because I really thought, with all the things that they had, that they were wealthy. But she told me some years later, she said, Glenn, retirement was one of those things that I always thought we would get around to do. But we really didn't know who to talk to. We didn't know what information to trust or where to get the information. And so we ended up just doing the only thing we knew how to do, and that was to farm. And so that's what they did. But I saw the struggle that began to take place in her life. And, I'm sure that you all have stories that have shaped you. And that experience, that season in my life shaped me so much that it directed me towards the career path that I made over 25 years ago to become a financial advisor. And so the blessing of my life's work today, ladies, is that I get to work with ladies just like you, just like your families, to make sure that what happened to my family, that when those crises came, that your family will be prepared for the unexpected. And when those times come, you'll know exactly what to do. And you won't have to go through what I saw my Nana go through. Now, for Jonathan, his story is around his mother. And so his father left when he was just a young boy. He didn't just divorce his mom, he abandoned the family. And so Jonathan experienced watching his mom being thrown into the fires of having to go from being a homemaker taking care of her children to having to be the breadwinner, having to also take care of the children, pay the bills, make sure everything was working and functioning. And it was a very scary time for him. And at a very young age, he resolved in his heart that the women in his life were going to be safe. They were going to be protected, and they weren't going to have to fear and go through what he saw his mom go through. And so that transfers into the work that he does today with our clients. So what's unique about us is one of the things that's unique is that we both have these powerful women who had such an influence on our lives. And so today, when you look at our company, what's unique about it is that there's this large group of women that are either single, divorced, or widowed. And they've just grown organically. We get a lot of referrals. Now, we don't exclude the fellas. We've got families, husbands and wives, folks that are still married, working together. But even with those families, we always build the plan with you ladies in mind, because we know, because we see it. We have a ton of widows, and unfortunately we lose a lot of husbands every year. And so we have to know that you're going to be the one to have to steer the ship. So you've got to know what to do and when to do it. And so it's important to us that our clients, especially our female clients, know that they have someone in their corner who's going to help protect them, make sure that they dot all the I's and cross all the T's so that they're ready for the unexpected whenever that comes. Now, ladies, I'm going to try to finish on time. But let me encourage you at this point to hang with me the entire time tonight, because in the end, at the end of our time, I want to share a story with you that shaped our company. It shaped our lives, and it shaped our culture here at Keystone and what we do. And I think you're going to want to hear it. So hang with me, and I'll share that with you in just a little bit. All right. Now, let's talk about moving into retirement. When you think about the retirement planning process, ladies, you can really liken it to climbing a mountain. And the first part of that retirement planning process is the pre-retirement stage, also known as the accumulation stage. And this is where you're working, you're saving in your 401ks, your IRAs, your 457 plans, all those sponsored type plans, Roth IRAs. And what's interesting is that you're going to spend about 90,000 hours on average in the accumulation stage of your life. How to get those numbers? Well, if you worked 50 hours a week times 52 weeks for 40 years, there you are with the numbers, okay? Now, so you're going to spend a lot of time in that stage, but the main focus is accumulation, getting the best return that you can possibly get, okay? But when you decide to retire, then you're going to spend the rest of your life in what we call the preservation and distribution stage of your life. And in the mountain climbing analogy, it's the descent. It's coming down the mountain, okay? Where you're going to spend a tremendous amount of time when you're moving in to that mountain, when you're moving into that process. Now, for so many of you ladies, when we get to this stage in life, we'll ask, hey, what's the most important thing to you at this juncture of your life and as you move into retirement as it relates to your money? And overwhelmingly from you ladies, you'll say, it's the security. Are we going to have enough? Now, you've been asking that. You're asking that question in multiple ways, okay? You've been asking it a long time. Will you have enough? Meaning, will I have enough to retire when I want to retire? Will I have enough to live the kind of lifestyle that I want to live and do the things that I want to do in retirement? And then when will I have enough to last me for as long as you're alive? You know, those are three very important questions. And so it's Jonathan and I's job. What we do and what we do best is we help ladies make sure that they're prepared for that journey into retirement and through retirement, and to avoid any pitfalls that could be very costly and devastating to their future. Now, when you think about mountain climbing, when there's accidents, right? When people climb mountains and come down mountains, where do you think most of the accidents occur? On the ascent, on the climb up, or on the descent, on the climb down? I bet you all said on the descent, on the climb down, and you're exactly right. That's where the fatal accidents occur as well, is on the descent. So it's very, very important that you can avoid the pitfalls and things that can, because again, you're not working anymore. You don't get the do-over, right? So you got to make sure that you've got your plan and that it's going to work with you and last you. Now, what you may decide to do is hire a guide. You know, if you're going on a mountain climb, you're going to want someone to help you navigate through the different challenges of coming down that mountain, right? Well, as it relates to financial planning, in the same sense, you may decide to hire a guide to help you navigate into your retirement years, which would be very smart. But here's the reality: only 17% of the investors out there, ladies, actually hire a guide to help them through their retirement, to make sure that all the pieces of their plan are in place. Okay, only 17%. So what does that mean? It means that what are all the rest of the people doing? That means that they're not hiring anybody. They're trying to do this and navigate this on their own. 83% are trying to do that, and that is um, that can be very devastating for you to do, because again, you want to make sure that you're going to finish well. Because here's some other numbers that you can look at. When you look at the comparison of those individuals that hire a financial advisor and how well they do, how well their portfolios perform, how well their overall plan cohesively works together. When you compare that to people who don't hire anyone, who don't get any help, and they try to do it on their own, or they just use a local broker, the results are significantly better for those individuals who hire a guide, who hire an advisor. Now, a lot of people are very, one of the first questions, hey, what's it cost? Everybody, we all want our cake and eat it too, right? We don't want to pay too much. And I get that. I understand that. But I want you to think about something here. I mean, this is your life savings, and hiring somebody to help guide you through that process. The truth is this, is that if you're looking at things to outsource in your retirement so that you can spend more time doing what you want to do, I'm telling you, this is one of the best investments that you'll make. It's one of the cheapest things that you'll do, but you want to make sure you find a really good advisor. But having someone be the best money that you'll ever spend, because I'm telling you, not being organized and not being prepared will cost you so much more in the end because of the mistakes that you'll make, the things that you won't do that you didn't even know that you could do, if that makes sense. And so, we don't know what we don't know. And so that's why we need to have the eyes with us to help us, guide us through somebody who's competent and knows what they're doing. And there's several reasons why you want to make sure that you hire the right advisor to help you through that process, and that you don't try to do that alone. Okay. Now, let's talk about when you retire. I love this picture, and I hope that all of you ladies get to experience kicking up your heels and enjoying the success of your hard work. Okay, but now here's the reality: all of you will get to experience the kickoff. Okay, kicking off your retirement. Now it may be different. I mean, as far as you may not know when you're going to retire yet, but and all of you watching won't retire at the same time, obviously. However, what you will do is you will experience kicking off your retirement. But once you kick off your retirement, then you're going to quickly find yourself into one of two groups. Okay. The first one, you're going to be kicking yourself for not doing a better job of saving and being prepared for your retirement. I promise you, we see it every single day. Okay. Or you're going to be kicking it up like this lady here on the screen, because you're able to enjoy the fruits of your hard work and the right type of planning that needed to be done. Okay. Now, again, it's Jonathan and I's job to make sure that we help our clients, we help our ladies design these plans so that they can be in that second group, because that's so important to us. And one of the things that we can tout, and I say this with pride, okay? I want to be a humble man, but I say this with pride, and that is 99% of the clients that come here, ladies, never leave and go work at another brokerage or with another advisor. Less than 1% of our clients leave. But here's even better news, that of all the plans that we've built over the years, we have 100% success ratio, meaning that not one of those plans have failed. No, not one. And so that's a big deal. And our desire is that all of you ladies will fall in that second group where you can say, hey, my plan did not fail. And I had somebody who cared about me and who guided me through all the way through this process, because it can happen for you. Okay. I promise. Now, let's talk about the 3 retirement realities. The next few slides, I'm going to talk about some statistics, but they're interesting statistics. A lot of times numbers, people get bored with numbers, but these are interesting. Okay. And these are studies done by, I think, Transamerica Center for Financial Planning, something like that. And the first one, the 49%, is really a sad number to us. And what that 49% is saying, that 49% of the women out there that retire are retiring fearful that they're either going to end up homeless or that they're going to end up financially broken. 49%. Now, 90% of the women out there in this study, 90% of those women realize that they should have put a stronger emphasis on planning for their retirement. They should have been more proactive. They should have done more things to be ready for retirement. Okay, 90%. Now, when you dig into that group of people, then there's two groups in that 90%. You got the first group that says, you know what? Yeah, I realize that I need to be doing more. I should be doing more things to get ready. But as a result, they tend to procrastinate. Next thing you know, they're in analysis paralysis, and they freeze up and they do absolutely nothing. And ladies, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Okay. Now, the second group of 90% are those ladies that say, you know what? I need to do something. I need to make some changes. And guess what? They take action and do it. They don't wait around. They begin to start to try to find a guide, an advisor that they can work with. They began the process of taking control of their monies and knowing where things are at, getting organized, which is a big deal, knowing where things are at. They began doing planning and taking a realistic look at where they are. Okay. So, here's what I would ask you is, in that group, which group are you? Which group of the 90 are you falling into? Are you in the group that says, hey, I need to do something, but you know what? I'll just put it off till another day. Or are you in that group that does what is required so that you're prepared, you're diligent today so that you can enjoy the fruits of what you've done in the future? Okay. I hope you all have made a decision to be in that second 90% group that will take action on their plan. Okay. It's a big deal. Now, 44%, what's that number? The 44% of American women out there are either single, widowed, or divorced. 44% are either single, widowed, or divorced. Now, for those of you ladies who are watching this and you're married, okay, and you are enjoying the benefits of a wonderful marriage relationship, that's fantastic, okay. But what I want you to hear is that there's a high possibility that today, while you're married, that in sometime in the future, you're going to fall into one of these three groups. Very high probability that you're going to fall into one of those groups. So what I'm saying here is that, don't exonerate yourself and excuse yourself and say, hey, you know what? I'm good. I've got my husband and everything's going to be just fine. I'm telling you, you can't do that. You've got to make sure that you hear this message, because this message applies to all across the board. Because we see it, Jonathan and I do, and our team, we see it every single day. We see happily married families come in, and I've had several this year, okay, where we lose a spouse. And 9 times out of 10, it's the husband, and now the wife is there as a widow alone. The good news for our clients is that they're ready because we've prepared for this day, okay? We plan for the worst and hope for the best is what we have to do. So Jonathan and I are very passionate about bringing this message to the marketplace. I mean, we want to scream from a megaphone that big from the top of the buildings, and we do, okay? And so we're wanting to scream that message out there so that women know, hey, wake up, ladies. You've got to hear what's going on. And so we're committed to making a difference out there because we understand the problems that you face, and we're here to help make sure that that you're ready for those and that they don't sabotage your future. All right. Now, we're going to talk about some more unique retirement risk. Now, again, this study was done by Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies. Okay, this was a report that was done by them. And what's interesting is that 12% of the women out there have full confidence, are very confident that their financial plan is in place and that they're going to be able to enjoy the retirement that they've planned for and that they've dreamed about. Only 12%. Okay. Now, 53% of the women out there are concerned and fearful that they're going to have to keep working past age 65. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this third category, the 1/3, is that it really ties back into the first one. Okay, the 12%. And what the 1/3 means is that 1/3 of the ladies out there have an advisor helping them. Okay, so 1/3 have an advisor. Only 1/3 utilize an advisor. But here's what's interesting: when you look back at the 12%, they use an advisor to help them plan, but only 12% of the people are completely confident with where they are. So again, there's a problem with that. So what that's saying is that 1/3 of the advisors of the families that use an advisor aren't satisfied, aren't completely confident that they're with the advisor that they're with. They don't have complete confidence that the planning that they've done around their retirement is where it needs to be. And there's good reasons for that. Okay. In our industry, ladies, the majority of our industry operates under what's referred to as a suitability standard. Okay. That's usually, if you're working with a big brokerage firm, your advisor there operates under the suitability standard, which means that the recommendations that they make are really for the masses. In other words, it's more of a cookie cutter type approach. What's interesting is that when clients come in and when we look at their statements, based on the name on the statement, we can pretty well tell you how those portfolios are allocated because they're a cookie cutter type approach. And, you know, in a perfect example of that, just yesterday, I was meeting with a lady who owns a business who plans to retire at the end of the year. And she's married, but she pretty well runs the business. I mean, he does his part, but she manages, handles all the detailed stuff. But they've got over $3 million. Okay, you'd think, oh my gosh, if I had $3 million, I mean, I wouldn't worry about anything. She's scared to death. She's scared to death that they're not going to have enough. She's scared to death of healthcare costs, different things, because she said, Glenn, I've got these investments, and I've been working with this broker, this advisor, for a number of years, and I really like the guy, but I don't have any clue where we're going or how we're going to get there with our plan. So it's a perfect example, ladies, that if you are one of the ladies that say, I want to get some help, I don't want to try to do this by myself, and you want to be in that 12% group, then let me tell you what you have to do. You have to hire an advisor who's a fiduciary. A fiduciary means that they take an oath. When Jonathan and I we're working on how we were going to be licensed instructors, we said, you know what, we're going the fiduciary route. And so as we began to lay that out to become a fiduciary, that means that we took an oath. Any fiduciary is going to take an oath, just like an attorney or a doctor, that any recommendation or prescription that they prescribe to you, that they're going to have to back it up with the proof that it was the right recommendation for you and it was more beneficial to you than it was to them. Okay, that's what a fiduciary does. A fiduciary is not going to sell you investments. If you find yourself, always talking about just talking about products and investments and moving this and changing this and buying this and doing that, I'm telling you, you're not in the right spot. You need to be working with a fiduciary. So we want to encourage you to think about that because At the end of the day, you want to know that fiduciary is going to help you build a plan that's customized to you. We've built hundreds of plans over the years, and not one of them is the same. Not one of them's the same. So it's important that you're working. You also need to know how they're compensated. Okay, and you want to make sure that they're compensated in a manner that they only do better when you do better. You don't want to be in a situation to where your money goes down and they're still making more money. That's not good. So that's very, very important that you know that. All right. Now, let's move on. How are we doing on time? I think we're doing okay. All right. So let's talk about women's retirement saving statistics. Will more women or men age 65 and over end up in poverty? What do you think? Well, here's the numbers. 80%. Women are 80% more likely, ladies, to end up in poverty than men. And we're going to talk about why that is. The next question is, what's the cost of women's versus men's retirement health care for those that are 65 and over? And on average, for women, ladies, you'll spend $155,000 on your medical care. Okay. For men, it's around $120,000. And again, one of the reasons is because you're living longer. So you got to make sure that you're ready for that. And then the third question is, who saves more for retirement, men or women? Women save 43% less than men do. Okay, 43% less, which is really primarily related to your earnings potential, how much you're able to earn, and how long you're in the workforce. Because some of you ladies have taken time off to raise your children, or you've been out of the workforce taking care of parents, which this affects your income. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about that. So we're going to talk about Social Security here, and the things that we were just previously talking about, your time out of work. That's going to affect, ladies, the amount of Social Security that you're going to draw. If you've taken time out to raise your children, to do those types of things, we take our hats off to you, because that's a hard job. Okay, even taking care of parents. But because of that, your benefits is going to be impacted in a negative way based on the number of hours and years that you've worked. And so, from Jonathan and I's perspective, that's a reason why this Social Security is so important. And I want to leave you some tips, some ideas, and things that you can actually take and use so that you can avoid some of these pitfalls. So let's talk about, you'll hear all the time, you want to maximize your Social Security. Well, all that means is that you're just kicking the can further down the road, meaning you don't turn it on at 62, or you could turn it on at 66, or you kick it on down to 70. All right. So the longer you kick it down the road, the bigger your benefit is. What we want to talk to our ladies about is how to optimize your Social Security benefit. And one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is how the impact of zero earning years, what that does as far as your work history, what that does to your benefit. We're going to then talk about divorced and widowed survivors' benefits. We spend a lot of time educating our clients on these issues around Social Security. Because, ladies, it's the little things that you do that make all the difference. Or you could say it's the little things that you miss or don't do that can also make the difference. So you've got to pay attention to that. Then I'm going to talk about inheriting your spouse's benefit and why that is so important. Okay. Now, this first slide here is a great slide about Mrs. Jones and her earning history. And as you can see, that she took 7 years off of work to raise her family. Okay, so she was out of work those 7 years, and that is going to affect her Social Security benefit, because Social Security, ladies, is based on a 35-year work history. They take the top 35 years on average, their history. So if you have some 0 years, then that's going to factor in. Like when we were in school, right? And you had some zeros that factored into your overall grade. Well, these 0 years will factor into the overall benefit. But for every year that you work further beyond that point, then those 0 years can actually begin to come off. Okay, so it's important to know that. So because if you're working and maybe you really like what you do, and you're asking yourself, well, gosh, do I need to retire or do I not? Well, knowing that, hey, if I work just a couple more years, I can knock off some of those 0 years. Well, what's that going to do to your benefit? That's going to allow you to have a larger benefit, which is ultimately what you're after. So many people don't even pay attention to Social Security. And if you think about it, for many of you, Social Security is one of the largest assets that you have. I mean, think about that. If it's paying you, say $30,000 a year, for the next 40, 50 years, that's a lot of money. And if you calculate if you're married, both of yours, we'll see, Social Security benefits $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month. That's a lot of money. So knowing what option to choose is a big, big deal. And looking at those highs 35 years. Okay, so that will affect your benefit for sure. Now, let's look at this slide because this is talking about here, just very quickly here, showing the average income benefit or the benefits between Mr. Jones and Miss Jones. On the left is Miss Jones. On the right is Mr. Jones. So you can see that lifetime benefit there, is a difference of over, if you look, 4.2 million to 4.8 million. Okay, a little over 4.8 million of a lifetime total benefit. That's a lot. Or as far as income, total income, that's a lot. When you look at the annual totals, okay, the difference is around $13,000, $14,000 a year difference. So those years out of work will affect your benefit for sure. And so you want to make sure that the lifetime earnings you maximize those because that's going to impact how much you draw on your Social Security, and that'll come into play as you move on down the road. You'll need to know that because one of the reasons that Jonathan and I bring this forward. Let me go back here for just a second. Is that we bring this forward is here. Yeah, there we go. Is because remember when I started with the statistic of this, that 80% of the men will die married and 80% of you women will die single. So ladies, we know that looking at these Social Security benefits, knowing when your husband turns his Social Security benefit on. In other words, if he turns it on too early, then that could have a huge impact because if his is the larger benefit, then guess what? If he dies, you're going to lose your Social Security benefit. And as a result of that, then now the survivor benefit has been compromised because you turned it on too early. So you've got to pay attention to these little things down the line. And when we're building a plan, especially when we're thinking about your side of her side of retirement, when we're looking at the spousal income plan, Social Security is one of those things that we look at because that's going to be a guaranteed source that you may have to depend on down the road. And we don't want you, if you don't pay attention, you'll miss the boat. And Jonathan and I are committed to make sure that our clients don't miss the boat when it comes to these little details because it's a big, big deal. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the widow versus the divorced benefits. And so this first one here is talking about the widows. Okay. And, there's something that Jonathan and I consistently do is again, educate our ladies, and they don't realize that if your spouse were to pass, okay, then what happens is that you can begin taking a survivor benefit as early as age 60. All right. So you can start taking this benefit if he were to pass away. And, one of the things that a lot of ladies don't realize is that the widow's benefit is a separate pot of money than your benefit, okay? It's a separate pot of money. So if you have young children, then you could actually start taking it before age 60. But you could begin to draw on this benefit, and then what you're able to do is allow your Social Security benefit to continually increase all the way to age 70. And that may make all the difference in the world, because your benefit may actually exceed what his benefit would have been. So you want to take advantage of that. And if you don't know that, then you'll miss it. Okay. Now, you need to know that if a widow, when you remarry after 60, the survivor benefits, they're unaffected. So ladies, if you're 58, 59, and you're widowed and you're thinking about getting married, you've got a nice guy there on the sidelines, be patient, wait a couple more years, at least till you're past 60, so that you can keep that benefit. You don't want to lose that. So again, keep that in mind. That's just some good information. It's a little feather that you can keep in the back of your hat there as it relates to that. Okay. Now, let's talk about for a moment the divorcee's benefits. Okay, and what this one is saying is that if you've been married for 10 years or longer, okay, and then you've been divorced at least 2 years, if you're not remarried, then you can actually draw on an ex-spouse's benefit. Let me say that another way. You can actually begin to draw off of your ex-spouse's benefit as long as they are qualified from an age standpoint, meaning age 62, okay? They don't have to be taking their benefits, but they have to be 62, but you've been married for 10 years, divorced at least 2, then you can start drawing against his benefit. Now, what's always comes up, it's hilarious to Jonathan and I, is that we'll always have a lady or two that when we're going through this and we're educating them, they'll say, they'll look here and they'll look here and they'll lean into us and say, hey, you mean to tell me that if I draw this benefit, will this negatively impact his benefit, meaning that he'll get less money? And they've got kind of this excited look on their face. And the answer is no, okay? That's not how that works. You can draw that ex-spouse benefit and it won't affect their benefit at all. In fact, they won't even know that you're doing it. So you don't have to consult with them. This is yours to do, okay? Yours to do. So you want to make sure that you're in the know, that you're prepared, but you can take advantage of that and it won't do that. Now, another thing that you want to remember is, maybe you've been married multiple times. I was talking to a lady this week, and she was telling me about a good friend of hers. And she says, Glenn, she's been married 6 times. She said, she's insane. There's no way. If I get, if one time is enough for me, she said. And I said, well, now hang on a minute. She might be smarter than you think. Because if you've been married multiple times and you've been married those 10 years and divorced at least 2, then you can actually choose the higher benefit from your ex-spouses. So here's the important lesson, ladies. If you find yourself going through a divorce, you've been in a divorce, then try to marry up, okay? Want to try to make light out of something that's not a fun thing to go through. But if you do get to choose the higher of the benefits. So keep that in mind. Also know this on the ex-spouse's benefit. That's either you get to choose yours or theirs, the greater of the two, okay? So it's not like the widowed benefit to where you can keep drawing that benefit. You're either going to draw one or the other on that, all right? Now, longevity of men and women. The crutch of this slide here is that you women outlive us men on average, minimum, based on this slide, 5 years. It's between 5 to 8 years, okay? But women that are 65 years old, they have a life expectancy 1 in 4. If you're 65 now or older, you have a 1 in 4 chance, or one out of 4 will live beyond age 90. Okay, 1 in 10 will live beyond 95. I bet you know people who are in their 90s, late 90s. We're living longer. So as a result of this, ladies, we have to plan for that longevity. You know, you look back at your parents, died in their 70s and 80s, okay? But now people are living that much longer. Now, here's another slide that I really like, and it says that 61% of the women will be responsible for their financial retirement. Let that sink in. 61% of you women will ultimately be responsible for your financial retirement. And you can see the breakdown. Now, here's the message that I want to speak to you ladies that fall in right now, that 39% category of being married, okay? And that is that, again, you know, you're married today, but what's going to happen is, again, what's the high possibility that you're going to fall into one of those other categories? Very, very likely. And so many times we'll see couples come in, and the husband will come in, and a lot of times he's pretty much in charge of the finances. She just lets him be in charge. She takes care of the house. He takes care of that piece of it, and they're good with that. And when that's the case, I'll always lean over, and Jonathan will do the same in a meeting, and I'll say, you know, I can remember a story. I'll say, you know, Jim, let me ask you a question. If something happens to you, is Mary going to want to do what you're doing today? And will she know what to do? And he'll always look and go, you know, I don't know that she will. And then when I look at her across the table, and I'll say, Mary, what do you think on that? She says, you know what? No, I don't know what I would do. I don't feel comfortable right now. So my point in that, ladies, is that if you're married, then even if your husband is involved, I'm not saying you have to go home tonight and say, hey, honey, I listen to this guy and he says that I got to take over. I'm not telling you to do that. It may not go well. But join him in that journey. You need to be able to sit in the driver's seat from time to time and be comfortable. You need to be comfortable with where you're going. You need to know what's going to happen. If he were to die prematurely, what's that going to do? What's your Social Security benefits going to do? You need to know all of those things. You need to be prepared. So you can't afford to do that, because here's the other thing is that, you know, if you're in that category, some things you need to realize is that if your spouse passes, you're automatically going to be in a higher tax bracket. That's true, because the married filing jointly allows more money in that bracket than single filing. Okay. So many times we'll see widows that will pay more income taxes when their husband passes away. So you need to be aware of that. The other thing is if he passes away, unfortunately, you're paying more taxes, but also you got to think about your Social Security. Again, I mentioned it a while ago. You got to look at when he turns his on, because if he turns it on early, then what's that going to do to the survivor benefit? That may be your only guaranteed source of retirement income, because most people don't have pension plans today. Many times, unless they create an extra source, which we promote and believe in, but many times the only source of guaranteed income that a family has is their Social Security. So you've got to know, if you're married, ladies, what your benefit is going to be. Many times the husband's benefit's larger, so you're going to lose the smaller one. It's going to go away, and you're going to be left with his. So you might want to make sure that you do that. So we want every one of our couple clients that come in, we want them to think about the spousal plan. It is so, so important. If you don't have a spousal plan or an income plan at all, you've got to have an income plan. But you certainly got to think about that spousal plan, because the possibilities are very high that you're going to be either widowed, divorced, and find yourself in that single situation where you're paying higher taxes. Here's the other thing, ladies, if you're married, that you got to think about, and that is the pension plans. Not long ago, we had a lady that practically drug her husband in here by his ear, and she said he's getting ready to turn on the pension benefit. for the single life, so we'll get the highest benefit. And she had just realized that if he did that and he died, she gets zero. Now, to his defense, he's not thinking he's going to die, right? He's just trying to maximize the benefit. So it's enticing enough because it can many times be a larger benefit, and you multiply that over the years, it's a lot of money. But the reality is that if he were to die, then she gets zero. So you've got to make sure before those pension plans are activated that you know what the spousal benefit is and that you're able to choose that and be involved in that, because that could make a huge. It's really, really critical. And Jonathan and I are just so passionate about making sure that if something happens, that she's left with a plan and she knows what to do. And lastly, for you couples, many times what we'll find is that because he's spent more time in the workforce, and on average, men make more money per year than women. And so his retirement plan is larger many times. And if he dies, then that 401k or that IRA, you're either going to inherit that or it's going to roll into your own IRA. Okay. And you need to know that because you're going to be forced to start taking required minimum distributions when you're at minimum when you're 72. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you're a beneficiary, if it's a beneficiary IRA, then you've got to start taking distributions immediately. And so what that can do, again, you're going to be in a higher tax bracket, and it can force a lot of monies to be lost in taxes. We see it over and over and over again. And so we want to make sure that you're prepared for that because many times clients are not, and they're having to take more from their 401ks than what they need, and they pay more taxes. Okay. All right. So let's move on. And I think we're doing here, we got probably another 10 minutes or so. So I think we're doing okay. So now let's talk about taxes. The hardest thing to understand in the world is the income tax. Albert Einstein said that. Well, the one thing that I can tell you is that Jonathan and I, neither one of us are Albert Einsteins. We're also not CPAs. We're not accountants. Okay. But what we are is we are fiduciary financial planners, investment planners that specialize in understanding tax strategies around your investments. And we've been doing that for years and years and years. And the tax planning is a big part of the planning in helping you develop strategies for down the road. And so, what's important and what Jonathan and I hear most about, ladies, that what we want you to hear, or what we typically hear, is that, won't my accountant take care of that? And the truth is no. The accountant is really not set up for that in most cases. Most accountants are preparers. They're tax preparers. And their practices are built based on volume. So they've got, when you go to a tax firm during tax season, they got 3 or 4 people in the lobby because they're trying to get 2,500 tax returns done during tax season. So the best recommendation and advice they're going to make to you is that, hey, can you put more money in your IRA or maybe fund a Roth IRA? Okay. But when it comes to helping you understand the strategies, that's not really how they're designed that's not what they're designed to do. And so it's really important. You need somebody in your life, ladies, who knows the tax strategies and the relationship between the strategies and your investments and how they can work together. Because there's some things that you can do from a pre-planning standpoint that you need to know about. Like before you're 72, there's things that you can do to reduce the amount of taxes that you'll pay when you retire. Now, I guarantee you that when you filled out your paperwork for your retirement plans, and you were listing your beneficiaries, I promise you didn't list the IRS as a primary beneficiary, right? No, absolutely not. You didn't. But they put themselves in there because they wrote the code. So you need to remember that. And so there's things that you can do to begin to reduce that over your life. And having somebody to assist you will give you the security and the peace of mind to know what to do and how to do that. it's very, very important that that you're able to do that. Okay. Now let's move on here. Now let's talk about the new Secure Act that happened this year. And what this did, ladies, it allowed you to defer your. One of the things it did is defer your required minimum distribution. If you don't know what that is, it's the amount of money that you have to start drawing out once you reach age 72. It used to be 70 and a half, and it's been pushed out now to age 72. So if you have a 401k, an IRA, or a 403b, or a SEP plan, then you're going to have to start drawing money out from those plans. But because they let you defer the money all these years, but here's the catch. The catch is that you've got to start taking it out, and they tell you how much you have to take out, and they get the first portion. So they've got their hand in the cookie jar, whether you want it there or not. And there's two things that you need to know about that. One is that taxes are going to go up in the future. So it's a fact, ladies. In 2018, the tax rates came down. So from 2018 in this Secure Act, from 2018 to 2025, the tax brackets actually came down. After 2025, the tax rates are going to go back up. But I would submit to you, when you look at the condition of our country and where we're at fiscally, financially, how we are as a country, when you look at Social Security and Medicare, ladies, taxes are going to have to go up. So you have to pay attention to this and have this in place, okay? Because there's a lot of things that you can do before you get to age 72. There's strategies that you can utilize to buy back out the IRS, buy them out of the ownership in that their ownership share from your retirement plan. You can do things like conversions, and there's different things that you can do, Roth conversions. There's some other strategies that you can utilize. But having a good tax plan and somebody who understands that is really important, because if you don't take that money out by 72, there's a 50% penalty. 50%, and you don't want that to happen. And so one of the reasons it's so important to do some planning is so that you can head some of these problems off. Let me give you an example as what I mean by that. I got a client a few years ago, and when they came in, they were already in their mid-70s. And no advisor, they had a broker, but no one had talked to them about tax planning. And so as a result, they were having to take $50,000 more income than they needed when that required minimum distribution kicked in at 70, $50,000. So they were paying an extra $10,000. So between 70 and 80, they're going to pay $100,000, over $100,000 over 10 years in taxes for money that they don't need to spend. That could have been avoided had someone guided them and helped them take advantage of the options within that plan. And so again, Jonathan and I are very diligent in helping our clients plan and know what to do when those situations come up. You got to think about it now, ladies. You can't think, like for our client, it was too late when he came here. He said, why in the, what didn't somebody tell me about it? And because they didn't know. So it's important that that you know the difference and that you have somebody in your corner that can help you. Now, the Roth conversion, I talked about that. What is that? That's where you move money from the taxable world, like your IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, to a tax-free world. So ladies, if you're working right now and you have a 401k Roth, you have got to put your money in that plan. So for example, if you're funding a 401k and you're putting, say, 12% and they're only matching 4% in your 401k, drop your contribution down to 4%, so you're getting that free money, dollar for dollar match. Take the difference of that and start funding it in the Roth. Yes, you'll pay taxes today, but ladies, look, the tax rates are lower today. Taxes are on sale. Right now, you need to be thinking, how can I get as much money in the tax-free bucket today? Because we know in the future that tax rates are going to have to go up. I could give you data that would scare the britches off of you, but because it's going to happen. So, but you can be prepared by thinking ahead and planning. And right now is a wonderful opportunity for you to be looking at doing some conversions and getting money in those tax-free buckets. Okay. Now, let's talk about healthcare. And this is probably the greatest expense and risk that you face once you retire. It's huge, and so it shows that someone turning age 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care. 70%. The average stay for you women is 3.2 years. If you have Alzheimer's or dementia, it's over 7 years. Jonathan had a grandmother that had dementia. My mother-in-law, right now, we're going through that with her. And so we're very passionate about this. And so you've got to be prepared. 15.2% of the retirees 65 and older will spend $250,000 or more on healthcare costs. And so if you say, well, I don't have a plan, well, you do. It's self-pay, because if you haven't done anything outside of that, then you're going to have to pay for that on your own. And the average cost is around $90,000 a year. Okay, $90,000 a year. But here's the good news, ladies, is that there's a lot of tools out there today. The industry is evolving, and there's things out there that you can utilize and do to solve some of those problems. There's investments that they're not long-term care products, but they have features that you can utilize the money to help pay for long-term care. The government and the insurance industry is working together. They've called the Pension Protection Act, because they see all these people that are going to be needing medical care, and they don't want to have to foot the bill. So they're incentivizing these companies to build products. So the good news is that there's things out there that you need to be talking about and looking at to make sure that you are prepared the best you can. Now, the last one is market correction. Probably one of the most important things. We're in volatile times right now, very volatile times right now, very uncertain times. And it's likened to 2008, not 2008, but 2009-11, when they hit the trade towers. The economy was good. We didn't see that coming. And they shut down planes back then, if you remember that. Well, guess what? The economy was good when this hit. It was the strongest that it had ever been. American families had more money in their pocket than they'd ever had when this pandemic hit. So we saw this panic and this shutdown take place. So this market correction that's taken place, then we've got to know, all right, hey, what are the things that you need to be thinking about now to know that you're protected if this happens again? Because it will happen again at some level. It always does. And one of the first things that you need to do is to make sure that you don't get emotional. Okay. That's what we saw in the pandemic, was the emotion of everybody panicking, pulling their money out of the market. You know what? I promise you, if you have a plan, you will not panic, and you'll be able to keep your good thinking skills and make good logical decisions, because you're not allowing your emotions to lead. Because when you mix emotions and money, it's usually not a good deal, right? You know that. And so our clients, because of the type of planning that we do, they don't have that, or they didn't have to worry about that. And we're going to give you an opportunity in just a moment to ask us some questions if you want to talk to us. But you don't want having a good plan will help you not get emotional. You want to understand your actual risk. Okay. One of the things that Jonathan and I do is we have a software, some analytical software, that we can look at your portfolio, and it'll score your portfolio from 0 to 100. And what this analytical software does is it looks at things like standard deviation and beta. And what it's able to do is show us how sensitive your portfolio is going to be to volatility. Okay. And you want to know what that is. We want to be able to back test it and say, okay, if we have a 2008, how much is your account's going to go down? Ladies, if I ask you today, hey, if your accounts went down, 30%, do you know, or if the market went down 30%, do you know how much your accounts will go down? You need to know what that number is, because that will help you in your planning and knowing how much risk you have in there. It's very, very important to do. Okay. And ladies, the other thing is that during talking about the COVID and everything, if you're married, then there's never been a better time for you to get involved. Because think about this. If you're married and you're in that retirement age and your husband gets COVID, and then 7 days later he's gone, what do you think you're going to need to know about your finances? The answer is everything. Okay, so there's never been a better time for you to get organized and know right where you're at, and working with someone who can help you with that. Act your age. What does that mean? A lot of times we'll see folks come in and they're ready to retire. They're 60 or 62, 65. But when you look at their portfolios, I would swear that they were in their 30s based on how they had it allocated, because it's way too risky. Okay. And so making sure that you're not taking more risk than you need to, because as you move closer to retirement, you're going to want to be more conservative, because you certainly can't afford to take those big hits whenever that time comes. And then the last thing is to create an actual plan. Okay. All of our clients have, I'm going to grab this here for just a second, ladies, have what we refer to as a financial roadmap. It's a proprietary planning tool that we have. All of our clients have this plan. It's very detailed. It's very thorough. It's a thick booklet that we take a lot of time in helping you build and then monitor and change it as we need to, because I promise there will be changes that will need to be made. But you need to be able to create a plan so that you will know where you're going to end up. I heard this saying, if you don't know where you're going, you might not like where you end up. And I promise you, if you don't have a plan, you need to have a plan. And Jonathan, I would love to have the opportunity to help you. We're going to give you that opportunity to click on a button in just a few minutes. It may be there now, where you can make an appointment for 15 minutes to ask us any questions. Okay. It's going to be very, very important. Now, remember I told you about that story. For those of you who have stayed on here, let me know if you've been on the entire time, because I've asked some of you I have asked you all to stay on. I want to give you the kudos for being on here the entire time. But I want to tell you about a story that changed the direction. Hey, there's Kate. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for hanging in there with us. That's great. But this story changed the direction. Hey, Deanna Day, she's been with us. That's awesome. Marjorie's been with us. All right, this is awesome. Love that you guys are here. That just gives me goosebumps. I'm now that I know it's not just me and the camera, right? You're really there. That's cool. But this story changed the direction of our company. And we had a client that had a son that was in Afghanistan, and he was a leader over there, and we would stay in touch with them. Well, unfortunately, that we learned that there was a terrible, terrible accident that he was in. Okay. And he made it back to the States, and we had the opportunity, some time later to meet their son. And what had happened was, when we were with him, we were asking, we're like, Mark, what happened? Because when you look at him, he looked great. Didn't look like he had a scratch on him. And he said, well, every day, guys, my job was to get in the Humvee and go out and look out in the enemy territory to see if our battalion was going to be safe. Okay. And so I would have to do that, and then I would report back what I found. He said, but this particular morning was different. He said, because I took the time to pray for my protection. And he said, and so I pulled up and I got out of the Humvee and I had my gun. And what I do is I go out and I take my binoculars and I scan and I look at different places. I document things, and then I go back. He said, I went over to the left and I made a step. And when I did, I heard a click. He said, now with the training I had, I knew that I was in trouble. He says, the next thing I remember, he said, I woke up, and he said, there was an explosion. I'd stepped on a landmine. And he said, and it blew my whole left ear completely off my face. Okay, it was gone. But today, I'm so thankful that I have 100% hearing. And Jonathan and I both were like, well, wait a minute. Back up. You said that your ear got blown off completely, but today you have 100% hearing. How can that be? And he said, well, because when the guys my team they were loading me in the truck, one of the guys went and found my ear and taped it to my chest. So when they flew me into Frankfurt, after hours and hours of surgery, they were able to put my ear back on, and I have 100% hearing today. And I said, wait a minute. how in the world, this is a miracle, but tell me, how in the world do these guys know when bombs are going off and things are going on to go and look for your ear or to even notice that your ear's gone? And he looked at me like I was crazy, and he said, Glenn, he said, we train for this. This is what we do. We train for a crisis. We train when the unexpected happens, that every guy knows what to do on the team to save lives. That's what we train to do. And I'll never forget that. Jonathan and I were so moved by that. And so we came back to the office and we sat down with our team, with our staff, and we said, guys, we told this story. And we said, this is who we are. This is who we have to be for our clients. Because they have to know that when a crisis comes, we know exactly what to do because we've spent hours and hours working on it, preparing for it, planning for it. So when the exact time comes, we know exactly what to do. Everybody on the team knows what to do. And so this reshaped the culture of our company. And so today, our clients not only enjoy the benefits of having a good financial plan, but they have the peace of mind, and they know that they've got a team of people around them that truly love them and care about them. And we take a personal interest in making sure that their plan is going to be 100% successful. Okay, so important. So, ladies, I'm out of time. They tell me I usually talk too long, so I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But I'm so excited. I hope you can feel my energy and my passion for what we do. Jonathan and I both, we love what we do. So I want to give you an opportunity right now. If you just want a second set of eyes, then we want you to click that button and schedule that 15-minute phone call. And I want you to know this, ladies, there's no obligation. We don't expect that if you call, that you're going to, move all your money over here with us to work with us. We don't expect that. We want to hear your questions and answer your questions and see if there's anything that we can do to be of service to help you so that you'll have more confidence. So do yourself a favor. Remember the two groups in the 90%, those who knew they needed to do something, but they procrastinated, they overanalyzed it, and they did nothing. Don't be in that group. Be in that group, ladies, that says, you know what? By gollies, I'm going to take action. Maybe I procrastinated in the past, but no more. I'm going to move forward because this is that important. I hope you're in that group, and I hope I have the opportunity to talk to you soon. Have a good evening.